All right, everybody, welcome to the AFC South edition of this Madden 25 challenge. We're, trying to win with every team head to head. Starting off with Houston here since they won the AFC South in 2024, and I was definitely looking forward to playing with Houston on this game because one, their offense was pretty good anyways with Mixon at running back, and they still had Diggs out wide receiver, and you got Stroud at quarterback and stuff. But we drew Philly for the first matchup here, and yeah, I didn't know how it was going to go. We started off on defense, and usually when I'm on defense to start it off, I like to, I like to try to hold them to 3 or less. Obviously you don't want to give up touchdowns, but that's my own kind of way to set the tone. If I can get a stop early on, then I feel a little bit better going into the games. And we got a big stop there on Saquon, but yeah, we did the placement matches, because the season had flipped right before the start of the AFC South recording, so went 3-2 of those matchups, including the win over Houston, so that's 2 games now where I was competitive against Houston. Also drew Philly for one of the matches and snuck out a win there, 3-2 overall, but the 2 losses were by a combined 2 points, so lost on a failed 2-point conversion and a walk-off field goal at the end, so that kind of sucked. But, yeah, there's a big play to, the interception here to Harris. So, obviously I always hope to not give up a touchdown, so to score your own touchdowns even better. And that really set the tone for this game here. Just being able to get points up on the board first with the defense, I was definitely pumped up. And then we go into drive number 2 here. And should have had to pick there, to be honest, so that kind of sucked, but yeah, it was just like, had a really good start, was hoping to, kind of get something more. Try to keep him out of the end zone again here. And, a lot of times I'll like to play this cover 3 on Madden. He goes to the outside, and unfortunately for him, Stingley's just sitting there. And yeah, I mean, all of a sudden it's like a dream start here. We're sitting there just, 17 yards out from the end zone. Alright, yeah, and then the first play right after the interception by Stingley. I'm just trying to look at getting a touchdown because of how close we're starting, 17 yards out. So as soon as I saw that shift over to our right side of the line and I was already running left, I felt really good. And yeah, not bad to start for the offense either. First play touchdown, so first drive for the defense, they get their own pick 6. First play for the offense, we get a touchdown run, and now we're up 14. And then, yeah, we go into drive number 3 for the Eagles. And, yeah, this is where it starts getting a little rough. So, Stingley almost got another interception there, but it ended up being Bryant, who's the 3rd corner. So, Stingley is really good at corner. He's 93 overall. Texans have really good defense ends in both Hunter and Anderson as well. So, yeah, once that interception happened, I felt, if I can get one more touchdown, that game was on lock. And naturally, here comes the offense again. So this is only the 2nd play that I've run on offense this entire, game so far. And 31 yards out, it didn't really work out on play number 1 there. But I was excited to finally get the throw with Stroud, because, I mentioned Diggs too, but you have Nico Collins and Tank Dell, so 3 receivers over an 80 overall, so when I got lined up here, obviously I'm kind of looking at maybe Collins over the middle or Mixon coming out of the backfield, but I noticed him creeping up with the safety, so I figured I'd have a shot out to the outside, and that's immediately I went to Dell and got the route, got what I wanted. So all of a sudden it's 21-0, and yeah, we're well on our way to a victory here. All right, late stages of the game now. We're up 31-7. My opponent finally got a touchdown to Smith right before halftime to make it 21-7. And then I answered back with a touchdown to Mixon and a field goal in the second half. So pretty much was sealed up at this point, 31-7. And yeah, the initial thoughts, defense had held it down quite a bit. You can see he's doing a deep shot again to Smith here, but Bullock comes in and gets the interception. So that was interception number 4 on the day, and it ends up being our second pick 6 overall. So yeah, I loved playing with Houston's defense, way more than I expected. And I always knew that they'd been tough when I was playing against them, but I can see why now with Stingley you know, being a 93 overall corner, and then you got, you know, pretty good safeties. You know, defense ends are really good with Hunter and Anderson again. So, yeah, there's a lot more talent than I realized on Houston on Madden. So, yeah, shout out to people that play as the Texans and stuff. But yeah, I mean, overall, you know, it's 38-7. We're gonna get a win, first one with the division winner of the series. So, yeah, I was pretty pumped about that. And Stanley closes out with interception number 5 for the defense. So, yeah, you know, overall, just a great game. Great way to set the tone. And you know, up next was going to be Indianapolis for the AFC South. So, to play with my friend Joe's team next. All right, so with the Colts, you know, I drew the Packers again. Hate drawing my favorite team on this game, but strategy going in this one was just to run the ball with Taylor and Richardson especially. And first 2 plays got 7 yards off of it, but an inaccurate throw on 3rd down led to 4th down. And as you can see, I should have punted. I always call out other people for going for it on 4th down their own territory, but I went and did it myself and tried to run the same play as what I did on 3rd down and got pick 6. So didn't really change the strategy going forward on offense. Just one of those where, yeah, that was a crappy start to the game. So yeah, so following the pick 6, you know, mainly ate up the clock for most of the rest of the half. Staying on the ground with Taylor and Richardson mostly. Realized pretty quickly that my opponent was running about 3 or 4 of the same defensive plays. This is cross 3 fire here, but he also had like cover 1 robber and the cover 2 like hard flat play. So I sent, you know, Taylor in motion to kind of get an idea real fast, but knew I was going to have down on the outside and finally got a touchdown. So ended up tying it up. Was pretty pleased overall with the offensive drive. But man, the second half got a little bit, or the second quarter got a little bit crazy because not long after that, I couldn't stop Christian Watson. So you'll see him hit, you know, the deep shot here. And pretty much that was the main issue all game for me on defense. No matter what coverage it seemed to run, he always seemed to just happen to find him. And then right near the end of the half, answered right back, got Pittman over there in the corner. I was able to attack the outside pretty good on passing, just inaccuracy sometimes would be an issue with Richardson, but you know, I thought we were going to go into half tied up, and then this happened. So this play made me pretty ticked off because 6 seconds left. Thomas, I should have stayed back looking at it a little bit, but wasn't expecting to get called for a PI. I don't think I've ever been called for a defensive PI online, so that set up the field goal before half, and instead of being a tied game going into halftime, all of a sudden we were down, you know, 17-14, and he was about to get the ball back to start the second half. So from that point on, it was mostly chasing for the rest of the game. Yeah, coming out of halftime, finally wasn't Christian Watson that was killing me. It was Josh Jacobs on the ground, but my opponent did make sure to get Watson that touchdown on the stick route near the goal line. So, you know, we were down 10 points going into the fourth quarter. Driving down the field, I was able to run a lot with Taylor and Richardson. Ended up between the two of them combined for like 16 carries for 162 yards and the 2 touchdowns on the ground. So you can run like crazy with the Colts offense. In fact, well, I say that especially, you know, in this game because of the same, you know, 3 or 4 plays, but probably got a little bit over-reliant because at times I was just pre-scrambling knowing that was the same play, so that was one of them. Happened to work out for a touchdown. But that was about as close as we could get. Onside kick later on after we traded Josh Jacobs and Anthony Richardson touchdown runs. And, you know, anytime I do the onside kick, try to do the high kick, go to a little bit to the right of the defender there, but yeah, didn't work out too well. He recovered, and that was pretty much it. But he did leave one more Christian Watson touchdown for the road. So, I mean, not my most hated loss, only because it was the Packers that ended up winning, but definitely frustrated with how I played on defense this game. So, and then game number 2 was a lot of ball control offense. You know, this play right here is the end of the first drive of the entire game, so we're already into the second quarter at that point. A lot of 3-4 yard runs on both sides of the ball. I had a chance to score at the end of the first half. Got tackled inbounds like a dummy with no timeouts. So, you know, by the time I finally got here, we're at the 2-minute warning at the second half, and I've held the ball most of the second half at this point. Kind of returned the favor on, you know, 3 or 4 yards at a time and got my score of Taylor. So big, just kind of slugfest type of game. And then eventually, you know, unfortunately right before 2-minute warning, I let Ayuk turn free by mistake. You know, that was the only catch of the game for Ayuk. So the 51 yards kind of killed me here. Tried to let him score as quick as possible to save some time for me to try to score. Eventually, he got in with McCaffrey there, and that was it for the scoring because I ended up turning over on downs. Yeah, opening drives for both of our teams ended up in interceptions. With mine, I was trying to bullet pass over to the sideline and ended up accidentally lobbing it, so PB got the pick. And then same deal, they got down to about my 30. I threw my pick at like the 32. I think he threw his at the 33. So, yeah, just kind of a weird little start to the game, but, you know, started to move the ball again. Kind of same strategy as the last 2 games, running with Richardson and Taylor. He played a ton of cover 3 match without really making any adjustments over the time. You'll see like a ton of cover 3 on this little stretch at the end here, but yeah, I just kept trying to kill it with drag routes and flats and everything like that. So mix in the runs and everything too, but yeah, it was kind of a weird little drive. And the other thing I noticed was he was playing a lot with the nose tackle on defense, so it was creating a lot of space in the, you know, D line. And you know, if I was passing and didn't really have a receiver right away, I was pretty much able to take off pretty quickly with Richardson. So that's what ends up leading to this this first score of the game for, you know, us. He got destroyed there with Jones, and that was all. So take the early 7-0 lead and felt a little bit better going into the rest of the game. Yeah, so then we got underway in the second half. Opponent had the ball first, and you know, 3rd down and 10 here, a couple incomplete passes. Finally gets one to Hopkins, so sets up a 4th down and 3 inside his own 32. And this is kind of always one of those. I was like, might as well punt and play defense, but I said that, and I didn't do it for myself against the Packers in the first game with the Colts. But yeah, unfortunately for him, there was the turnover on downs, and then, you know, Jonathan Taylor showing why I was doing really well with the Colts offense between Richardson and Taylor, because, you know, we're only up 7 midway through the 3rd quarter pretty much, and just absolutely breaks one free right here. And yeah, that would be the final play of the game because the connection got lost right afterwards. So, you know, overall with the Colts, had a lot of fun even though we went 1-2 with them. Defensively, the last 2 games were much better than the first game, so I think it was just a skill issue for me on the first game. But you know, after that, it was supposed to be on to Jacksonville, and I screwed up and went to Tennessee. So yeah. All right, so first off, you know, we go down to Tennessee, have to rock the Oilers jerseys. You know, I wish they were still in Houston, but those are some of the sexiest uniforms that I've seen in football. 2, you know, sometimes you get into games that are kind of bad, and then there are sometimes you play games that are like worthy of being in the Hall of Fame for the Sickos committee. This is the latter on that one. My strategy going into it was to basically run the ball with Tony Pollard and maybe mix in a little bit of Calvin Ridley, because they're the only 2 players on the Titans offense that are over like an 80 overall in this game. So between them and Levis, I think is tied for the worst overall rated quarterback that I've played with at this point. Was not looking forward to trying to win with this with the Titans. I figured it was going to be multiple attempts, but yeah, the start of this game was absolutely insane. So here's kind of a recap of how those drives went. Yeah, first drive was moving pretty solidly. I was looking for the tight end here, thinking it was going to be kind of a sit on the curl. Instead, he ran the out route, and I had already thrown it. So interception on the first drive kind of ruined things a little bit there. All right, and then drive number 1 on the defense. He was moving down the field a little bit after the interception and got the pick back. So that was how the first quarter ended up closing out, was, you know, us trading interceptions. So yeah, that was a nice little relief there. But yeah, that relief didn't last too long because my dumb-headed self went to the right, tried to throw back to the left, and obviously got picked off. I still, even watching it back, have no idea what the hell I was thinking there. So, yeah, but then my opponent got downfield and should have been able to kick a field goal. Didn't call the timeout, tried to throw one to the end zone, and got the interception back. So, the first half saw 4 drives and 4 interceptions between the two of us. So, yeah, that was a scoreless half and just stupid. All right, so starting off the second half on defense, ends up more of the same. So my opponent had the ball first and ends up throwing a pick to Jerome Baker. And this time we finally get points on the board because it's a pick 6. And yeah, man, it was a long stretch there. 5 possessions between us, 5 interceptions. And, you know, luckily points on my side to kick it off, so. I'm hoping to make it 6 for 6 on interceptions on possessions, but yeah, Drake May suddenly finds the power of God and anime on his side to, you know, get out of a sack there, complete it for a long first down. So it is first and goal for my opponent, and yeah, I mean, this was just a, like, both teams, like both of us, were able to move the ball on each other, and then just seemingly always would end up turning over the ball. This ended up being the only offensive touchdown in the game, so you know that was enough to tie it up at 7 with 2:36 left. Yeah, so last drive of the game for me, 3rd and 11, not looking too good, but I sent the receiver in motion and realized I might have Pollard coming out of the backfield. So I did a quick hot route there, just in case, and turned out he was wide open. And man, this was the moment of sigh of relief where I realized, you know, all right, it looks like we're gonna get the job done. We're gonna get the win. First time with the Titans too, and then, you know, eventually I just kind of ran down the clock and kicked the game winner and got out of there. So, I will say I'm happy to get the win with Tennessee. I don't think you're going to see me play with Tennessee again for a while unless I do another one of these challenges, because that was a little bit rough, but you know, at least we got it done on attempt number 1. All right, game number 1 with Jacksonville. We're taking on the Chargers, and not gonna lie, was not feeling confident at all about that matchup. But yeah, I mean, first drive, obviously, right there, you saw Savage miss Disley, but a lot of dinking and dunking. He moved upfield quite a bit, and you know, more power to him. He did well on that first drive. So, you know, quick 7-0 hole. Not exactly where you want to be, but yeah, that's where we were to start the game. All right, and then 3rd and long for me on my opening drive made me feel a little bit more, you know, worried. But somehow we find Brian Thomas over there, hit the big play all the way down to the 1, and yeah, felt a little bit better at that moment. That eventually led to this touchdown here with ETN. My strategy going into the game was getting the ball a lot to ETN, but didn't really work out too much. But he did at least get the touchdown there, so it's something. And then drive number 2 for my opponent, just kept moving upfield. So he mixed up things pretty well. You can see, like, right now he's about to scramble with Herbert, but to get to where he was at, and there was a lot of runs. There was a little bit of passing to McConkey, a little bit to Disley, so, you know, did a really good job of just mixing things up. And eventually, you know, here we are, 1st and goal, just under a minute left in the first half, and he gets rewarded with another completion to McConkey, so ends up being 14-7 here. Eventually I get a field goal like right before halftime to make it 14-10, so yeah, so I go into the 4th quarter, still down 14-10, but I've held the ball the entire time. Mixing up with a little bit with Christian Kirk, Ingram at tight end and stuff. And over here, you know, with Kirk, I'm going to send him in motion, just trying to get an idea of what coverage my opponent was running and stuff. And made me feel more and more confident that I was going to be able to have Ingram on the out route here. So as soon as that happened, you know, hit it. And we got a touchdown to take the lead in the 4th quarter. But as exciting as I was, or excited as I was about that, definitely was worried about the defense. Like, I hadn't got to stop it all throughout the entire game, so. Yeah, and that worrying feeling ended up being justified because my opponent was able to kind of march down the field just like the drive before. You saw the crosser over the middle just there, and then he's going to follow it up with a touchdown pass, and that will end up being the dagger because being down 21-17 with just ends up being less than 40 seconds. Couldn't quite make a comeback on that one. So, you know, unfortunately, the loss means that we're going to a 7th attempt to try to win the division, or win with every team in the division, and that means the AFC West is still secure at #1 right now. All right, kicking off attempt number 2 with the Jaguars. We had to head to Baltimore, which not looking forward to. Anytime I ever draw Baltimore Ravens person on Madden, I just instantly get mad because it's rough to try to stop Lamar Jackson, you know, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews. Outside the 49ers, I think that's the team that's beaten me the most on this challenge so far. And to see Mark Andrews get the first touchdown like that was definitely not a great feeling. But offensively, we came back. You know, our first drive here, 1st and 10, kind of knew that I wanted to run with ETN, but I've struggled to run the ball with anybody against Baltimore in pretty much all my games. But I wanted to run it enough to kind of keep them honest throughout this game. And eventually that led to, you know, like being able to try to find more of a passing attack. In this case, Brian Thomas is going to be the main deep guy for me in this game. So with Trevor Lawrence, who hurts me to have to be successful with a Clemson quarterback, but we end up tying it right back up. So not a bad exchange there at the start. You know, at least we kind of kept it in it. So, and then you know, coming into this one, I'm down 7 because of a King Henry, you know, touchdown on the swing catch. But you know, big 3rd down. Didn't want to go down 2 scores before halftime, and then I was able to hit Christian Kirk. So kept the drive moving. All right, and then eventually, you know, after another Thomas completion, get him caught on the screen, and I finally find ETN for a big play, so we tie it right back up, and everything's feeling good with about 70 seconds to go in the first half, so definitely felt comfortable with the Jaguars' offense pretty much in both games here. Defense is where it was a little bit more sketchy, but I also had 2 really good offenses that I had to face, so a little bit more understandable. Yeah, and then, you know, speaking of high-powered offenses, couldn't really get him slowed down a whole lot. So then we're right before halftime, and Mark Andrews pops up again. So that was frustrating, especially feeling like I was about to go down in the half, you know, touchdown. But then this kickoff happened, and don't get a whole lot of kickoff return opportunities to start with. But, you know, fortunately, break one here. Luckily, missed tackle there. And now I'm panicking because I'm looking at the clock as I'm running, hoping that I don't get tackled at, like, the 1 with no time left. But that ended up being such a huge kickoff return for a touchdown right there. To tie it up going into halftime instead of having to chase points the second half. Definitely a big moment in that game. All right, and then the first drive of the second half, because I had a ball also right after the kickoff return for touchdown. Big 3rd down, happened to find Washington, who really never targeted in either game outside of this one play. And man, if you're only going to get 1 touch, I guess you get to make it count there. So, you know, that gives us the lead for the first time all game. So I was pretty pumped up, but again, you know, need to do something good on defense to, you know, to stay with it. Yeah, so my opponent's coming back downfield, and kind of figured Mark Andrews again, because I'm like, he's already gone to that well multiple times. And finally, that guess kind of paid off. So, get the interception there, and now there's more of a sense of confidence. You know, 3 minutes to go, but our ball up the score. Main objective then is to run down as much clock as possible. Don't give them a chance to come back into it. Alright, and then final 3rd down of the game here. Definitely didn't know how I wanted to attack this. I decided to go for a screen to at least keep the clock running. Don't know why my opponent wasn't calling his timeouts to save time, but yeah, ultimately it ended up not mattering. The screen worked. We got the first down, and You know, the AFC South ends up finishing up with 4 wins in 7 attempts, so actually did just as well with the NFC West as the AFC South did as well as the NFC West for me. So wasn't expecting that coming into it, but more than happy to take it. So, and also just to beat the damn Ravens on this game, I'll always take that at this point. All right, everybody, and that's a wrap on the AFC South. I will take a 4-3, session overall. Just as good as what I did with the NFC West, which I wasn't expecting coming into it. So, again, there's my record there. You see 7-6. We went 3-2 in the placement matches with the Packers beforehand, 4-3 with the South, and then the full disclosure, the extra loss is I was getting ready to do the second attempt with Jacksonville, and I drew somebody playing with the Rams. Got a situation that popped up and had to leave after like 2 plays. So I didn't count it in my own standings, but that's what that is on Madden. But yeah, by the time this video comes out, the NFC South will already be getting edited, and then the AFC East and probably the NFC East will be already recorded, just waiting to be edited. So, feel free to leave a comment and, just tell me who you think is going to be the first attempt winners coming up. And then, yeah, by the time this comes out, I think Madden 26 is going to be right there. So we're almost to preseason. So, until the next time, stay safe, and I'll catch you then.